This chart tells you the steps for finding a trig function value. I usually give it to you in 2 steps, but they draw it out and give it to you in 4 steps. Step 1, they're telling you what to do if it's bigger than 360, or if it's not in between 0 and 360, I guess. Do what we did a few sections ago. We want to find the least positive coterminal angle. So that's where we subtracted 360 a couple of times to make sure we got a number in between 0 and 360. It's just a little bit easier to deal with there. Not 100% necessary, but that might make it easier. Steps 2 and 3, find the reference angle and find the trig function values for that angle. This is where we're using the chart. So you're finding that value that comes out of the chart. And then step 4 is the one that a lot of times people will forget. Determine the correct size. You would have to look at what quadrant we're in and say, okay, which quadrant is positive here, or which trig function is positive here, or is this one negative here, or is this one positive here? So 4 steps. I think of it as 2. Do the chart, do the sides. Example 6a. Find the exact value of cosine negative 240. A couple of different ways of doing this. You could just graph that negative 240 or draw a picture of the angle. I think it might be easier for us to find that least positive coterminal. Let's add 360 and see that it's 120 degrees. Now, I'm not saying negative 240 equals 120. I'm saying that those angles end up in the same spots. Okay? So let's look at where 120 is. There's 0, 90, and 180. 120 puts us in the second quadrant. Now, incidentally, if we had done negative 240, it just goes backwards. It would have put us in the same place. Negative 240 would have put us in the same place. So it's not totally necessary to change to 120. Either way, we're looking at the same location. All right? And what I want is that reference angle. So the reference angle is how far off that axis are we? Anybody tell me? 60? We're 60 degrees off of that. So when I do cosine negative 240, it's kind of like I'm doing cosine 60. I say kind of because the limitation of the reference angle is I don't know what the sign does. Is that plus? Is that minus? So cosine 60, I can tell from my chart. Okay? I can tell from my chart. Here, let's get a chart. Looking at cosine 60 is 1/2. So cosine 60 is 1/2. Okay? That's the first part. The second part, tell me what happens with the sine. So remember that we're in the second quadrant. We're in the second quadrant, and what do we know about cosine in the second quadrant? That's negative. So we've got negative 1/2. Negative 1/2. Cosine negative 240 equals negative 1/2. Example 6b, find the exact value of tangent 675. Well, again, 675 is kind of big and hard to visualize. So let's subtract 360. Let's find that least positive coterminal. Subtract 360 and you get 315. We're looking for a number in between 0 and 360 for us to understand it the best. Okay? And so let's pinpoint that on the coordinate plane. Here's 0, 90, 180. These are the quadrantal angles. 270. All the way around would be 360. We don't quite make it there, but we do make it past 270. We're making it into the fourth quadrant. 315 degrees puts us into the fourth quadrant. But what's important is that reference. How far is 315 away from 360? 45 degrees. That's a 45 degree reference angle. Okay? 45 degree reference angle. And so we're looking at tangent 45. Okay? Tangent 45 degrees. Tangent 45 degrees. You look at your chart. You have to do sine over cosine of 45 degrees. And so we're taking this, divided, we're taking square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2. That's going to equal 1. Tangent 45 degrees equals 1. Okay? But don't forget that second part. that second part says, are we positive or negative in that fourth quadrant? And so if you remember that mnemonic device, all students take calculus, the C in that fourth quadrant tells me that cosine and its reciprocal secant are the only ones that are positive, meaning that tangent is negative. So I should probably put a negative in front of that tangent 45. Tangent 675 equals negative tangent 45, or negative 1. And by the way, you go back up to this example before at 6a, I probably should have put a negative in front of that cosine 60, because cosine negative 240 doesn't equal cosine 60, it equals negative cosine 60, and that's negative 1 half.